can anyone, whether they want to work in a language school or privately from their own laptop anywhere in the world, create a rewarding and impactful career teaching English as a second language, even if they are just starting out or have no teaching experience or ability? Hi, my name is Lynette Kim, and here on the TESOL Talk podcast, I aim to answer that very question. So you're teaching a class in ESL and something completely unplanned, and let's face it, embarrassing happens. Oh my God, what do you do? Well, I've had this happen to me a few times because I've taught for years and years and years. And some things you just can't ignore and you shouldn't. So, like, for example, there was one time I was teaching and students were laughing and giggling and pointing above me just to the right of my head up high. And I couldn't understand what they were laughing at. And for a while, I just kept going because it was just chuckles. But then more and more students were looking and pointing. And when I looked up just above my head, there was a humongous rat hanging off of, like, there was like a big shelf thing above me. And I just squealed and jumped and nearly fell over. And then everyone just erupted with laughter because there'd been some things happening, like renovations, and this rat had decided to come inside. And honestly, it threw me, and everyone was laughing. And you sort of think, how do you get back control of the classroom for that? Well, number one, you don't pretend it didn't happen. Everybody knows, everybody witnessed it. We've all had a good laugh. And you just get back to teaching and pull everybody back to the material. Well, I mean, we had to call a caretaker, but I mean, apart from that side of things, you get back to it. And, you know, throughout the rest of the lesson, I referenced, would you care for a rat with your class? I don't think many of the students actually got the Faulty Towers reference and joke, but I mean, you just play it into the class. It's natural, it's life, it happens. All right. You know, I've had other times, like, once I was teaching a class and students were pointing out behind my back something when I was writing on the board, and I didn't understand why. Finally, I asked them, and it turns out that I had torn a big section at the back of my black slacks that I was wearing, and underneath them I had bright red undies. This was terrible, and I was like, oh my God. So, I mean, it's embarrassing, sure. I mean, torn pants, the whole thing, you know, it looks like you split your dacks, but I mean, life happens. So I just giggled with them. I'm like, oh my God, really? You know, like, what an inconvenience. I got a folder and I held it over my butt while I continued to write on the board. And, you know, we sort of made jokes, and I put some vocabulary up on the board about, you know, what is perving and stuff like that, colloquial language for, you know, in Australia. And we talked about that because, you know, there's no point ignoring it. It happened. And I've had other situations come up, you know, where something really embarrassing comes along, and, you know, students will do something funny, silly. Oh, one time I was teaching and I had a mobile whiteboard in the class. If you get one of these, try to avoid it at all costs. And they have a stand at the bottom, and I was busy going backwards and forwards, writing things on the board, and I tripped on the stand, and I did this juggling act where I was like trying to right myself without falling on the ground, and, you know, I only just managed to remain standing because I tripped badly on it. And the class like started laughing, and I was like, oh my God. Now, you know, if my only focus is what people thought of me, I could have got really embarrassed and felt really stupid. But to be honest, I've been teaching long enough to know that it didn't matter. It was irrelevant. And so I'm just like, oh my goodness, and then laughed with them. And it's like, wow, so glad I didn't hit the ground. And we talked about that a little bit. And then I'm like, right, let's bring it back. And you get straight back into the lesson again. So there are some key things, some takeaways from this. What to do. Number one, and what not to do. Number one, don't pretend things didn't happen when they did and everybody witnessed it. It happens, life happens. You just acknowledge it have a bit of a laugh if it's a bit embarrassing with the class, with the students, and move on. That's it. Don't keep referencing, don't keep talking about it. Whatever you do, don't keep thinking about it. Don't replay it in your head. Your job is to teach students, not be thinking about how you're feeling all the time or how embarrassed you are. It's done. It's over. Number two, don't explain it. You don't have to. The students can see what goes on. You don't go, oh, that thing's stupid. It shouldn't have been in my way. Oh, I nearly tripped. Or look at this. Or my shoes are loose. Or the floor's slippery. Don't make up excuses. Don't look for ways to justify what happened. It happened. It's done. Just move on. Again, moving on is the best thing. You acknowledge, have a laugh with the students. Oh my goodness, I nearly fell over, nearly landed on my ass. And you can put ass on the board and explain that one. It's colloquial, it's fine. Get on with it. So don't overthink it in your own head. Don't over-explain it or excuse it to students. And don't try to fix it. So again, if I'd been fussing around, pretending to fix the board or move it around or do whatever, it's just going to make me look like I'm embarrassed and I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm trying to pretend like I could, that situation, should have been different. And so none of it was my fault. It is what it is. It's a situation. So again, none of these things. You just want to move on. So these are the things that you've got to contend with because things happen. It really does. And you don't have to worry about it. It happens to everybody. You just happen to be in front of the classroom when it happens. And if you've already engaged with and got to know your students and have a good rapport with them, it won't matter anyway. Most likely, a couple of them will try and catch you on the way down if you trip. So move on, enjoy your classes, and never overthink it.